All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Christian Magnell here with Anna Hoke from Beachside Community Church, and we're going to introduce her a little more formally in just a moment. This is our second week of doing what I have called, it's really like a very unique name, Wednesday Conversations. And we had a great response last week. We had Nate Hesslink in to talk about culture and fear, and we had hundreds of people, well, not hundreds, not at one time, but we had hundreds of views. We had people engaging with it and a great response to it, people sharing it. And we're going to be doing more and more online. And what I would ask you to do is if you appreciate these videos and you like them and you're getting something from them, click like and share them and let people know about our station here on Facebook, our page. And we're not yet doing this on YouTube because honestly, I haven't figured that out. There's a way to do it on YouTube, but I don't think I can do it on Facebook and YouTube. So eventually, these will hopefully go to both Facebook and YouTube, but right now it's just Facebook. So anyway, love to have you guys engage. So today, Anna and I are going to talk a little bit about her experience coming from a Christian home and an upbringing which reflects her Christian faith, and now her engagement as an adult with the world through work and school, and just bringing her faith into the world and some of the challenges that presents. So, Anna, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us who you are. Talk about your faith, your upbringing, your experience maybe with Christian Youth in Action, and where you're working now. All that fun stuff.
Okay, well, I grew up in a Christian home. My dad's a pastor. He's the one playing the guitar.
Yeah, you might have heard of him, Rusty Hoke. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's kind of a big deal, actually.
Actually, a really big deal.
Yeah.
Here in Palm Coast,
Yeah.
we're a bit of a big deal.
Yeah.
So there's that. I was homeschooled all my life, and I did Christian Youth in Action. So all of my experiences growing up were in the Christian realm, that world. And now I'm working at Massage Envy as a receptionist, and I just enrolled in college.
And where are you going to be going to school?
Daytona State.
So, putting you on the spot, do you know what you want to do with that yet? I mean, I did not tell her I was going to ask about Daytona State, so this is completely putting her on the spot. But do you know what you want to do? I mean, is it just like general education right now, or do you have something you could see yourself doing 5-10 years down the road?
I want to major in psychology.
Okay. And you have plenty of great examples from your dad, myself, and people at church to let you know how messed up and crazy the world is. Do you think you'll, so you're majoring in psychology, do you want to do like a Christian counselor thing, you think, or more secular counseling, or you're not sure yet?
I want to be a child counselor, and I'll probably, I mean, obviously I am a Christian, so it's going to come out in any kind of counseling that I do, but I mean, I'm not quite sure if I'll advertise as a Christian counselor or if I'll just be a regular counselor. Haven't figured that one out yet.
Okay. And Anna has a lot of experience working with youth. She's done it at Beachside, working with Kids Cove, working with Christian Youth in Action. Did you want to say anything more? Because you've had a lot of training with them. Would you kind of talk a little bit about kind of your background with Christian Youth in Action and the things you've done, the Good News Club and all that?
So I started, oh my gosh, when I was I started going to Good News Club with my sister when I was about 10, 11. Okay. And then I became one of the teachers when I was about 11 and 12. And then I started going to Christian Youth in Action, being trained specifically to teach kids in the Good News Club, in the 5-day club during the summer. And I did that since I was 12 to 17.
That's awesome. And Ellen is working for the organization right now, right? So we'll put a little pitch for Ellen. So hi, Ellen, if you're watching at some point. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the biblical worldview and how it's being challenged for you. So I personally think it's a good thing for it to be challenged because I believe it's true, but I think that something that's challenged or questioned grows stronger. So it's good to have that Christian foundation, but then it's good to go out in the world and have that kind of challenge. I went to a secular university before seminary, and it was good for me to kind of hear alternative viewpoints and be challenged, and my faith was only stronger. So I think that's great. So let's begin by talking about, what is a Christian worldview? What is a biblical worldview from your perspective?
Yeah, in my perspective, I mean, you take the Bible and that's what the biblical worldview is. It's anything that's in the Bible. It's believing that Jesus came down to die for you and was raised again. And there are a lot of little things in the Bible that shape the biblical worldview, so I won't get into all of them. But I do believe that it is following the Bible specifically and not necessarily going outside the Bible.
Okay.
In terms of...
And what are ways in which, for you as a Christian, as a young Christian, not a kid anymore, but a young Christian, what are ways that it's I don't want to say benefit you, because that sounds really like, hey, there's benefits to being Christian. There are, obviously, but what are the ways in which it's transformed you, benefited you, blessed you, however you want to put it?
Yeah, it's been, for me at least, it's always been a comfort to know that God is in control, especially in this time.
Yep.
That's kind of what I've been focusing on myself. That was really the most important for me to know, is that God is always in control, and that's really the best thing about it for me.
Yeah.
Is that, because I'm a very anxious person.
Okay.
I do not like not knowing what's happening. I already have a major that I want to do, so I'm very, like, plan-oriented, and not knowing the future, I don't like it.
Yeah, and that whole God is in control piece is huge, because there is, like, a ton... This world right now is so soaked in anxiety. I mean, if you have anxiety as it is, like, join the club now. Like, everybody does. Everybody's anxious. And I've been thinking, like, more and more, and this is kind of like taking a trail off to the side for a second, which is okay, but I think a lot of the angst in our world right now and a lot of the anxiety is people believe they are in control. They think, well, I mean, we just need to, like, have a vaccine, and we just need to have tests. Like, people are demanding tests for something that didn't exist like 8 months ago. It's like we didn't even know about it, really. People didn't start talking about it until February, really. And now we're like, okay, there needs to be tests, and we have to have answers and a vaccine, and it's all good stuff. I mean, that's I want that. But really, the anxiety comes from the fact that we know we can't just wave a wand and have it appear. So that's huge, that the biblical worldview makes a difference by reminding you God is in control, which is a big part of what we need to be preaching and teaching right now.
I think it's interesting because right now a lot of people are realizing that they're not in control.
Yeah.
That's what it's showing a lot of people. Like, we can't control any of this. Like, nature, the world is always going to have something to throw at us.
Yeah. Well, just a few weeks ago, we had, some of you regular beachsiders know, we had to cancel in-person worship, which it's like, okay, welcome to 2020, but we had, we met at the high school, at Flag Palm Coast High School, and there was a tropical storm that was potentially rolling through. Yeah, a tropical storm. And we all knew it wasn't going to be bad, and the school district knew as well, but they have to have that available as a shelter if it did get crazy, if it strengthened, if it moved in toward Palm Coast. And so we're not in control, and the nice thing is we now are able to do things online in a way. In the past, we've just canceled worship. Instead, we pre-recorded it and then streamed it at 10 o'clock when we normally do worship. But yeah, it's huge, and people are definitely realizing they're not in control. So let's talk about how is it that kind of being in the world now, working as a receptionist, and then you're not yet at Daytona State, but how is it that your worldview is challenged? And you can be specific, you can be non-specific, but what are ways in which you feel like it's being challenged?
Yeah, see, it was never really challenged as a kid because I was always people at least claimed to be Christian.
Okay.
So in that world, it was never challenged. Now it's different because people are more vocal about what they disagree with.
That's true.
They're a lot more vocal, and then I sit there going, what? What do you mean you disagree with this specific thing? It's obvious.
Yeah.
But then I realized, well, it was obvious to me as a kid, but now it's not so much. People have ways of bringing something else and changing something to mean something else that I'm saying they're being like, that's not what it means, but it could mean that.
Okay.
But I never thought it meant that, so now
like
I have to...
any specific examples you want to share? And that's okay if you don't, but are there like specific things people have challenged?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to go into detail about them.
Okay.
But there are definitely specific instances that I didn't even think could be challenged.
Okay.
But they definitely were, and I was like, oh my gosh.
And do you find that through this process, and obviously, it's a lifelong process, but do you find that like your faith is as it's challenged and being strengthened, or are you questioning? And I know I'm kind of putting you on a spot,
Yeah.
but is it like, oh my gosh, I never, maybe it's not true, or is it just like, oh, okay, that's another way of thinking about it. I don't change what I believe, but like, how are you processing it?
Yeah, I definitely think it's being strengthened,
Okay,
especially from even like what it was a year ago.
okay, that's good.
I think it's so different now. Like 1 year changed so much. As a kid, it wasn't. I mean, I grew up in it, so it wasn't that. Like, I didn't have anything challenging it. So to me, at least thinking back on it, there really wasn't a way for me to strengthen it,
Okay,
because I think challenging it would be strengthening it for me, at least. That's how I strengthen it. But as a kid, that never happened, so I didn't really have a way to grow in my faith. And
Yeah.
now I feel like I'm definitely growing, and I'm definitely doing a lot more of the studying and the researching, and I feel like I want to do it a lot more now.
yeah, and I think that with kids, especially when they're real young, I mean, it's hard to find a way to really challenge
Yeah.
their faith. I mean, you're not going to in Sunday school say, "Hey, some people think God doesn't exist." Like,
Yeah.
so enjoy the day, so there's not really. I mean, you're laying the groundwork, and then as you get older, it begins to bear fruit. As okay, it's challenged, and you hear from people who think differently, or live differently, or see the world differently, and yeah, I think it does. For me as well, it strengthens what I believe. And there have been things where even from like Christians, there are other Christians that totally love Jesus that do things differently.
Yeah.
And I mean, as simple as I grew up in a more traditional church, and we didn't go a lot, but that was what I was used to. And so when I went to churches that had drums and guitars like Beachside, at first it was like, this is kind of weird, But then realizing there are like a million different ways to worship. Some churches you're wearing a suit and tie, some churches you're wearing robes, some churches have stained glass windows, others meet in warehouses, some in schools like ours do, or like ours does, and and they're all legitimate expressions of the body of Christ. So let's talk a little bit about sharing your faith. I know you've shared some things with me, which we're not going to talk about here, but you've talked about the ways in which you've shared your faith. Why do you think people, especially when they get to be like 19, 20, 21, why do you think that some follow Jesus, some fall away? What's going on there? I mean,
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with an upbringing. I know as a kid that I was always, I did kind of want to get out.
you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not necessarily that it was bad or that I didn't believe it. It was just that it was constant.
Okay.
It was just constant. I never went anywhere where we didn't even claim to be Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was never a person that didn't claim to be a Christian. And it was a lot. And as a kid, as I got older, especially as a teenager, I wanted to get out. And I wanted to go more into where I am now. And then I got a little older and I started getting scared of going there.
Okay.
I was like, I didn't really know how I would respond to going into a more secular world. Obviously now I know. I find myself wanting to go back into church a lot. I kind of miss it. But I think it does have to do a lot with the upbringing. A lot of people have been, as a kid, hurt by the church,
Mm-hmm.
or seen their family hurt by the church. And when they can choose whether or not to go to church, they choose not to, because all they've ever been is hurt.
And that's huge, especially for pastors' kids. Obviously, Anna's a pastor's kid. My wife, Marianne, is a pastor's kid. My kids are pastors' kids.
Yes, they are.
And I would say we talked about this on Sunday in church. Like, I think the vast majority of what the church has done has been like beneficial. I mean, I think the church, and I'm saying the Big C church, not Beachside, but just the church in general has done way more good than bad. I mean, like 90% good, 10% bad. You can disagree with the percentages, but for those of us on the inside, especially when your dad is a pastor, you don't have a choice. You're exposed to it, and you see that yes, Christians can be really ugly at times, and you see the pain that it brings to your parents or your siblings or friends in the church or people that you love and trust getting hurt by the church. And that's hard to get through. How do you think, it's kind of related, how do you think for your generation? Because so I'm Generation X, and we were kind of just skeptical about everything. We're just like whatever. I mean, we're the generation like we just don't care. We just like your generation seems a lot more like focused on caring about things, but your generation is also like sorry, really scared of everything. Like Generation X is like, whatever, I'll jump off that mountain, I'm sure I'll be fine. And your generation is like, I don't know if we can leave the house. And so your generation, in many ways, is much more focused on certain things, but also has a different worldview than mine. In light of kind of everything we're talking about, and you probably haven't like really thought this through, but are there ways that we need to change how we're talking about Jesus to reach that next generation? That maybe that your dad and I would talk about differently than you and your friends would talk about it. Have you developed a sense of that yet? And it's okay to say no.
I find that, at least for me, it becomes a lot more casual.
Okay.
The talk, like, it just kind of comes up, and we're just like, oh, okay. So it's a very casual conversation, and for me at least, I think what's important for my generation is that in terms of being a Christian and following the Bible, we can't waver on it.
Okay.
If we're going to focus, we have to focus on the Bible. And just because someone says that something else is right, if we know that the Bible says, no, it's not right, we have to stick to that. And we can't be changing. We can't change what the Bible says.
Yeah, because people nowadays, and I think especially your generation, but I think people in general, are much more focused on hypocrisy. And we're all hypocrites to some extent. I mean, you cannot be a Christian and claim a biblical worldview without at some point being a hypocrite. I'm not saying intentionally, of course, but we're going to fall short. We're going to sin. We're going to do things that contradict what we say and believe is true. That's just part of being human. But I think that your generation is even more focused on kind of hypocrisy and authenticity. And they want to know, like, are you serious about what you say? Because if you're not, I'm out because I don't have to go to church. Does that resonate? Is that the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think my generation definitely we want honesty.
Okay.
And especially going into things like the internet. Because there's a lot of things that aren't honest.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it has stemmed from that we're kind of sick of the kind of picture perfect lifestyle worldview. We want to know, are you being authentic, are you being real, or are you just faking it? So. Yeah,
and that is, obviously, when I was a kid, there was there was internet, but it was like scientists in California or something had it. And so we didn't grow up with like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and really all these different social media platforms designed for projecting a certain image. And, the image is, my life is great, everything's perfect, and it's hard for everybody not to have some anxiety that their life doesn't measure up to something that's not real.
Yeah.
They know it's not real, but it still induces these feelings of like, well, I've got to do this, that, the other thing. And then, even like news, when I was a kid, way back when, there were like 3 TV stations, maybe 4. And, there was the news. It was on at like 10 o'clock and it was over. Now it's constant streams of news, constant streams of information, and you never know what to believe. And so I guess that plays into it, that for your generation, really pursuing honesty, wanting to know, well, what is true? Am I kind of on the right track?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been a great conversation, and has been incredibly involved at Beachside, and we're excited to see her going out and going into the world and sharing her faith. She came with, I'm going to put a plug in, because you talk about being like kind of afraid to go into the world, but wanting to go into the world. She went to Nepal with us. As you were 17, because you're 18 now. You were 17. You went with us to Nepal. In fact, Angie Bush, who went along, she was your guardian, right? Like they signed something like Rusty and Jill signed, like basically signed your life over.
If I had to go to the hospital, Angie will be the one to.
So she goes like to Nepal with us. I don't think you never left the country, right? You'd never been in an airplane?
No.
Yeah,
not since I was like 1.
Yeah. So she's never been in an airplane. She's never left the country, and she's like, yeah, Nepal. I would like to do that. And then you're one of the people that went paragliding.
Yes.
Jumped off a mountain. So,
yes.
I can joke about my generation jumping off mountains. She actually did. So that was awesome. So
I did have a person strapped to me, though. that
Which-
knew what he was doing. So.
Which is still, I mean, like you're still jumping off a mountain. You know, you took a kite off a mountain. That's basically what it is. And you know, one of our people, Holly, broke her foot. And Mike, her husband, his had a rough landing. I think you're the only person to like escape totally unscathed. You know,
I think I did. I think I watched them fall, and then I kind of just like went gliding down
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
kind of landed. I was like, "Hi guys."
I went back and forth about doing it. I ultimately chickened out because I just I
Did you
kind of
zip
chickened.
line?
No, I didn't because I had back surgery.
Oh.
That so it's like I really wanted to go paragliding from the moment I first heard about that, like I'm doing it. And then it was one of those things like, okay, you literally had back surgery 3 months ago.
Yeah.
They just cleared you for running. Maybe jumping off things this trip like isn't the best idea, but hopefully next time, because I'm sure we're gonna go back. So next time in Pokhara, I think doing the paragliding is going to be called for. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do that again.
Yeah. Anyways, it's been great to have you all online. I mean, it's strange because we're talking to a camera, so you've probably been
We're
like,
talking to a phone.
well, yeah, we're not even talking. Well, it's a camera on a phone.
It's an iPhone. We're talking to an iPhone.
So that we're talking to it, and out in Facebook world, you're getting it. And if like one of us is like half out of the shot, I think actually we're both in the shot. We can see it. We'll get the Instagrams later on. But it's been great to have you here. Thank you for coming. And we're going to keep doing this each week. If you like this, again, click like, share it, do all those, you know what to do. But we're just glad to have you here. And we're glad that in the COVID times, the silver lining of being locked down is that we became much better at doing stuff online. And so we can reach out in ways that we couldn't necessarily reach out in the past. So you guys have a great Wednesday. God bless you, and I'll see you soon.